What's up, you guys? This is Mason Moran. I'm starting the part 2 video of the VA benefits videos. I uploaded part 1 last week. And when we were at the end of part 1, we were talking about using other veterans' claims and their claim process and their appeals process in order to see what a veteran has done right or wrong and in the past in order to get a claim accepted, or if it got remanded, or if they got denied. So here's an example. The example we talked about last week was intervertebral Braille disc syndrome. So all you do is you Google the thing that you're looking for, and then VA claim. You can also look up the code for it as well. Now you see the first results here are like some law firms telling you about IVDS. But if you come down here to the citation number, these are actual claims that are going through the appeals process. And you can go and see, so anything that says va.gov with a citation number is the actual claim. So what I do is I go and find these things that apply to me, and then I find the latest one. So you see right here, I've already clicked on it in a new tab. If we come up to the top here, you'll see all the details about the case and the issues that he wants. So he wants in excess of 10% for intervertebral Braille disc syndrome, and in excess of 20% thereafter. So he's appealing. This is an appeals case, and it will tell you, this is kind of the background, like why, like the time that the veteran served, and all his background as to why he thinks he has it. Here are the findings of the facts, which is like, this is exactly the medical and lay evidence. And we talked about that earlier, the medical and lay evidence that was presented. Here are the conclusions of law, which means this is the exact piece that we pull from the black and white actual law, like black and white instruction, the law. You see the 38 Code of Federal Regulations right here, and the diagnostic codes that he's applying for. So if you come down here, this is where they kind of do their analysis of like, how does this veteran's case apply to the findings of the law? And so they'll go through here and they'll tell you like all this like gargle right here. All it does is it just tells you exactly what is going on and how it applies to the law. Then if you just want a quick thing to check, I always check down here first, but you go to the order and this tells you exactly what happened. So he got a rating for 10%, no higher for intervertebral Braille disc syndrome, and that was granted. And then same with the 20% for the lumbar spine was granted. And then 20% rating, but no higher for radiculopathy. We'll talk about that in a separate video. That's a whole section of itself, the radiculopathy. But that way you're not wasting your time reading through the whole thing, and then you're like, oh, okay, what was this even for? You can see right away if you are reading something of what the veteran did right or what they did wrong. So then you can go back up here, and you can see exactly what the veteran did right to prove his claim. So look here, there's that citation number we were talking about. So that was the final part of the preparation of medical records. This is how to file your claim. So my recommendation is always do online using eBenefits, and make sure you make copies of copies of copies. The VA is notorious for losing things, so just make sure that you have copies on hand. You can also mail in your VA Form 21 TAC 52 6EZ. That's just going to delay your process, or you can bring it in person, in which case they're going to print it and then they're going to mail it, which is just going to is going to extend your waiting period. You can also use the help of a trained professional or a VA accredited attorney. I would highly, 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 highly recommend doing this, just so you don't have to worry about all the legalese stuff that's going on, and they know exactly what words to say and how to put your claim just right. It's important to note, this is kind of old information from last year, but the average wait time for a claim is 111 and a half days. I don't know where they get the half days from. It's just 112 days. So when should you file? If you're on active duty, you should be 180 to 90 days left in your service. You are eligible for the benefits of discharge program. This does not mean you get paid while you're still in for your disability. It just means that everything gets filed and approved, denied, or remanded before you leave the service. This is a great thing because then you're not, it takes the waiting time out from when you're actually getting paid. Please note that you need to do this before your 90-day mark. Post-service, there's no time limit. It's going to take a while because you're not in this benefits at discharge program anymore. To increase your rating, there's no time limit, but you may be required to show additional medical or lay evidence that your condition is worsening or that you have developed a new condition. If you're trying to game the system and you really don't have, a decrease in your medical condition or your health, and they realize that when you go in, they may give you a lower rating than you originally had because you're getting better. So do not try to game the system. Do not try to play that game. Only appeal for your rating. I would say if your VA attorney recommends that you do that, or you are getting worse. So there's appeals. When you file your claim, you can file a notice of disagreement within 1 year that your decision was made. So they say no, and then there's this VA Form 9, but that's in 60 days. So what now? You file your claim, and your claim's received. So it's filed on eBenefits, and you'll see a notice that says hey, expect, your claim has been here, it's listed, and then if you're doing it by mail, it's going to be about 1 week after. Then you go through initial review, which a VA service representative will review all the claims that you or your VA attorney has made. And then there's this evidence gathering portion where they're kind of reviewing everything that you discussed or you claimed, and then they'll make a decision. And then they may ask for evidence from you. Sometimes, well, I should say all the time, this includes a comp and pen exam, the CMP exam. Your providers will give their opinion and submit that to the VSR as well. And then they'll review that evidence, make a decision. Then they're going to, formalize it all, prepare it all, and then complete your claim, whether that is we need more information. This is your claim is denied or it's accepted and approved. So let's say that they say, hey, we don't agree with you at all. So you now have the option to appeal that claim, and you'll receive a notice saying that, we don't think you deserve X amount of percentage or anything at all. And you'll file this notice of disagreement, what we talked about a couple of minutes ago, which is that form. You have 1 year to submit it. I would recommend as soon as possible. And during this time, you're going to get more evidence. So that includes going to more CMP exams. That includes getting a, maybe outside doctor opinion. Sometimes even people who aren't considered doctors, but they're considered specialists, like nurses, phlebotomists, chiropractors even have been used in appeals cases, especially for something like, intervertebral disc syndrome. You see a lot of chiropractors being consulted on that. And then a decision review officer who is above the VSR, well, I wouldn't say above, he's different, or he or she is different. They work for the Veterans Benefits Administration. They go and review this appeal or your notice of disagreement. And if they think there's enough evidence, they'll fully grant your appeal. They'll say, hey, look, I think the VSR was wrong. And I think that you actually have a strong case to get granted your full benefits. And they'll send your documents to send you a document called Statement of the Case. Now, when you receive this Statement of the Case, you also get a VA Form 9. If you disagree with the Statement of the Case, so let's say that this decision review officer says, hey, I still don't think you deserve any of these benefits. You then get a chance to appeal to the Board of Veteran Appeals. This is where we see all those citation numbers. That's where those cases come from, is at this stage. Then you'll have to return the VA Form 9 within 60 days. Now, it is I cannot stress this enough to get a VA attorney involved, especially at this point, because the VA has had a history of, you'll fill this form out, you'll send it in, and let's say you do something wrong or you don't fill it out because it's it's a legal form. They're not particularly intuitive, so you may get these forms and fill something out inaccurately, not by your own fault, but just because of how it's made. They won't tell you that it's filled out inaccurately until the 60 days has passed and tell you, hey, this is filled out wrong. And what happens at that point is it goes all the way back to a new claim. So you got to start the process all over again. So it's frustrating. I would recommend you get an attorney involved, especially if you're doing appeals. And attorneys, the VA accredited attorneys are not expensive. They're really not that expensive. And some have payment programs where they won't even charge you until you get your claim, and then they just take it from your claim. So that way, you know, you're not paying up front. Again, I said that some of them, not all of them. So after you go to the Board of Appeals, they have 3 outcomes, which is allowed. They grant you your benefits. Denied, you know, if it's denied here, that's it. And then remanded. The board needs more evidence and it's sent back to the VBA, and they'll make a decision based off new evidence. It goes through this whole process again, unfortunately. So it's important to understand that when you go to that decision review officer, as it says right here, you're sitting at 12 to 18 months just for the decision review officer to review your claims. The average time for a Board of Appeals is 5 to 7 years. 5 to 7 years. That's after the 112 days initial, the 12 to 18 months, and then the 5 to 7 years on top of that. As you see here, 60% of all board decisions have at least one issue that needs remanded. So you're waiting a long time. Now, granted, you get back pay generally, but that's still a long, long time sometimes without coverage, sometimes without payment, or you know, maybe you're waiting on this claim to qualify for a special housing grant, which we'll talk about in a few seconds here, or a few minutes. So I can't stress it enough, get a VA accredited attorney involved, or a claims attorney who will help you. So we're gonna talk about the VA home loan. So the, the VA home loan, there's pros and cons, right? So there's no down payment, there's no PMI, principal mortgage insurance, primary mortgage insurance. You're allowed to have a higher debt to income ratio. There's no prepayment penalties. There's refinance options and flexibility of bankruptcy and foreclosure. And now recently you can now roll your renovation and building costs into your loan. It's a new program the VA implemented, I think this early 2020. The cons are the VA funding fee. It's waived if you're service-connected disability though. So for active duty members, you will have a funding fee. Sometimes that can get quite pricey. Just keep that in mind, but that's essentially the trade-off for having no mortgage insurance. So, you know, tit for tat, and being zero down as well. It's intended for primary residences. Sellers aren't always willing to accommodate. This is kind of changing now. It used to be, especially 2008, after the collapse, there was like this huge stigma because appraisers for the VA loans used to be just terrible. You know, according to other agents in the real estate industry in general, they used to really not want to work with them because they took forever to close, and the appraisers would just hammer the sellers and you know, really not benefit their clients. But that's changing now. That's all changed. There are still some places where they're hesitant to work with you, but especially if you're in a military town like Hampton Roads or San Antonio or San Diego, they're going to work with you because it's so common out there. So this is loan limits. There's actually no loan limits anymore. This obviously was a training that was made in 2019 where there were loan limits for different areas. However, that's gone now. You can get as much as you need, as long as your debt to income ratio and the bank will fund it. Okay, so here's some myths. You can only use it one time. It's absolutely not true. I have 2 or 3 out right now. You can use it only to buy a single family home. Also totally not true. The only thing is that you have to use it as a primary residence. So if you are buying a 4-plex, you can use that, live in one of the 4 units, and then rent out the other 3, and the VA will still fund it. They do not fund commercial multifamily real estate with the VA loan, though. So what does that mean? That means if you're trying to get an 8-plex or a 12 or an 18-unit apartment complex, they will not fund that because it is a commercial property. But 4 units and below, generally, sometimes 5, will be allowed to be funded under the VA home loan because it can be considered a primary residence and still residential zoned. That's a whole, like, again, that's going to be another video of like how to invest with the VA home loan. The VA home loan requires a perfect credit score. Absolutely not. In fact, they're more lenient to service members and veterans and allow for actually a lower credit score than most banks do. The VA appraisal process is a nightmare. Again, that is, there is some truth to that. It is not anymore. The VA has gotten much better about that, and same with the banks who work with the VA have gotten a lot better about that. And you can only own one property at a time. 100% not true. You can own as many as the banks allow you to own, as long as your debt to income ratio follows. The only stipulation here is you cannot move into a house and 2 days later buy a second house and 2 days later buy a third house. That's not how that works. You have to have the place as your primary residence. I'm in the Navy. I move around quite a bit. So naturally, when I buy a house, every 3 to 5 years, I'm moving again. And I would like to buy another house as long as my debt to income ratio is sufficient enough and I pay down the mortgage a little bit, they allow me to buy another house. Okay, so now we're getting into the grants, the Specially Adapted Housing Grants. So SAH. So the SAH just makes, these are grants accessible. Each one is a little different here. So the SAH, it makes homes wheelchair accessible essentially. You must have a loss or loss of function of at least one leg or both arms, or blindness with a like total blindness on both eyes with a loss of one function of the leg. So that's a lot of or statements. Again, we're going to make another video about just housing grants from the VA. The SHA, stay with me now because we're swapping these up a little bit, is really to support independent living. Generally, you have to have a loss of use of your hands from military service, and sometimes burns and respiratory injuries will allow you to qualify for that. And the Home Improvement and Structural Alterations Grant, it's really just to improve mobility and particularly like to facilitate the usage of bathrooms. So think about people who need handrails and ramps and special electrical outlets, roll-in showers, and widened doors. The interesting part about the HISA is you do not have to have the disability be service related. There's the only grant here where it does not have to be service related. However, you get a larger grant amount if your condition is service related. Education and training programs. We're going to go over all the GI Bills. I'm sure a lot of people know quite a bit about them, but some people really don't. Some people don't know what they have. So we're going to go over that. So you got the post 9/11 GI Bill. It provides up to 36 months of education benefits. It includes the Yellow Ribbon Program, which is the next slide, and the transfer of entitlement options. They aren't available through the Montgomery GI Bill. So you hear a lot of service members saying, I'm giving my GI Bill to my daughter, son, wife, whoever. Now they made it though, so I think at least in the Navy you have to re-enlist in order to do that. So they kind of restricted that a little bit. They give you a BAH or monthly housing allowance. It's based on your zip code, but if you're going to online school, it's almost $900 a month. For foreign school, it's about $1,800 a month. I actually know someone who they wanted to live in the Caribbean, so they went to school in the Bahamas, and they're living essentially in like a little hotel for less than I think it's like $1,000 a month, and they're pocketing the rest of that, and they're having a great time. So you can totally use that to your advantage out there. They give you an annual book stipend of $1,000, a one-time rural benefit payment of $500. This is to help you move essentially to a city environment where a university would be. It's if you're in a country or a county, I should say, that has less than 6 people per square mile, and you have to either relocate or fly to go to the university. So it won't cover all of your moving expenses, but it's something to help you. All tuition and fee payments are covered for in-state public schools. For private, it's up to $24,000, almost $24,500 per academic year. But wait, what if my school charges $50,000 a year? That's a great question, because there's this thing called the Yellow Ribbon Program. And if the school partakes in the Yellow Ribbon Program, essentially what they're saying is the school said, look, we understand we charge more than the GI Bill covers. What we're going to do is we're just going to take care of the rest of it. It doesn't matter to us. We want veterans to come to our school. And this applies to any sort of school. Well, I shouldn't say it like that. Any sort of higher education. So it includes going to law school, master's degree, medical school, all sorts of stuff like that. And you can go look up on a link as to what schools fund or what yellow ribbons. So there are some schools that will fund a master's in engineering, but not fund law school. There are some schools that will fund all their medical school and fund no master's programs. And sometimes they only fund, let's say, $8,000 of your tuition. It all depends. There's a list. You can go look it up. You just either with this link here, or you can just Google, Yellow Ribbon Program schools. But a lot of the quote unquote Ivy League schools, they generally have Yellow Ribbon programs that cover all tuition all the way for almost any veteran. I think it's just to attract more veterans to Ivy League schools. And like it says here, the amount that they will pay for a veteran changes every year. Sometimes it doesn't change at all, but you want to keep checking it annually to make sure that your benefits have not gone away from year to year. Especially a thing where like medical school is 4 years. So you can do it 1 year and they stop funding it, then you might be in trouble. Montgomery GI Bill provides education benefits to veteran service members who have at least 2 years of service. It requires a 12-month payment of $100. You can opt in for a $600 buy-up program that will give you $5,400 in additional GI Bill benefits. The nice part about the Montgomery GI Bill is you can use this for trade schools or things that are not traditional university schools. You can go to bartending school, you can go and get your welder's certificate, stuff like that. I opted into the Montgomery GI Bill only because you can change to the post 9/11 if you would like to, eventually, but you cannot change back. So once you go to the post 9/11, you can't go back to the Montgomery. And you don't get your money back either. That's the other thing. That $1,200 you end up paying, you will not get that back. But that's fine. Survivor and Dependent Educational Assistant Program. There are two big ones here. The Gunny Fry Scholarship. This is if you died in the line of duty after 9/11. It gives pretty much all your benefits to your spouse or child, whichever one you would like it to go to. The spouse or children have to apply for these benefits, and you have to prove that, yes, you died in the line of duty. The Dependent Education Assistance Program is a different program. You don't actually have to die to help your family out here. You can just be totally disabled, permanently and totally disabled. That's not as bad as it sounds. You can get a permanent and total and still be completely active. You just, I guess I shouldn't say completely active, but it's not how it sounds where you're bedridden and wheelchair bound for the rest of your life. That's not necessarily true. You can be permanent and total for other reasons as well, and this helps your spouse or your children get educational benefits. National Testing Program. So essentially, the VA will refund a lot of the like CLEP and Dante's tests, the SATs, the LSAT, the GMAT, and all these other ones. MCAT, this is like the SATs for medical school. You see them all right here. So essentially you take these tests and they will reimburse you for them. As long as you pass, you have to pass. So OJT and apprenticeships. This program typically involves entering into a training contract for a specified period of time. I think this is one of the coolest things that is offered, because not every veteran wants to do the job they had or can do the job they had when they're in the military. So you receive a salary from an employer union during your training as an apprentice. And at the end of the period where you're doing this, you get a job certificate that is issued or a journeyman status is achieved, just saying that, yes, you're officially like a line electrician now, hired by the union. But in the beginning, you'll receive 100% of your BAH for the first 6 months. And as every 6 months, it goes down, and goes down, and goes down. You also get $83 a month for stipends for books. So that's pretty cool too. Okay, VA vocational rehab and employment benefits. We're going to go over this really quickly because this is going to be another video because there's a lot to talk about here. But it's essentially designed to assist veterans with a service-connected disability to obtain suitable employment and achieve independent living goals. There are 5 tracks, which include reemployment, rapid access to employment, self-employment, and employment through long-term service and independent living. So I'll just give you a chance to read some of that. And here are the other ones. Again, we're going to make a video about that because it's a very in-depth topic to discuss. You may be able to get VA healthcare benefits if you served on active duty, naval or air service for 24 continuous months or 2 years and didn't get a dishonorable discharge. So this means you will receive financial compensation. This is the rating that we talked about. We're discharged for a disability resulting in something that happened to you in the line of duty. This is just how you qualify. If you are 50% or more disabled, a POW, or deemed catastrophically disabled by a VA provider, you do not have to make any copays for any of your medication. So that's pretty cool. Insurance, this is just SGLI continued for your spouse and children. All of these essentially are just like the SGLI, but there's special things that you have to qualify for. Pension. You can get a VA pension. I would say, this sounds kind of judgy, but like it's not meant to be sound judgy. This isn't like a great thing. If your net worth does not exceed $127,000, you can qualify for a pension from the VA. I mean, generally, you don't want to be in a spot where you're getting a VA pension. It means you're really hurt. Generally, like it says here, you're 65 or older. You're permanently and totally disabled. A patient in a nursing home because of a disability, getting social security disability insurance. So while it sounds nice to get a pension from the VA, especially if you didn't serve 20 years, if you're getting a pension from the VA, you're really not in a good spot. But this is how you qualify right here. Memorial benefits, you can be buried in a VA cemetery, national cemetery. They will help bury you or cremate your remains. It's just like a government furnished grave liner, all this stuff that you see at, national cemeteries. My great-grandfather got buried at a national cemetery, and it's very cool. It's in Bakersfield. And they go and place wreaths and flowers on his gravesite occasionally. They make sure it's very clean. They do a very, very good job. And they covered almost all the expenses for us, which was great. So if this is something that you would like to partake in when you pass, this is always a good thing to know and at least tell your family about as well. And that's the end of it. That's the end of this video. So if there's any additional information or questions that you guys have, please put them in the comment section. Like and subscribe to this video, please. Smash that like button, as one of my favorite people, Stephen Graham, says. And thanks for watching.